If you're not of the mindset to survive, then you won't in a bad situation. And that's a reality too. Hey guys, welcome to 3 Mississippi. Well, there's been a lot of weird stuff in the news lately if you've been paying attention. Orbs, drones, UFOs, planes, spies, all kinds of theories and all kinds of craziness. And I don't claim to have any of the answers, nor does our government apparently. But what I do have are some thoughts on maybe going over some things, and those things that are important and those things we should be thinking about all the time, regardless of what the government tells us. Recently, if you guys pay attention to anything going on in the news or in the social media world, the government came out, had a whole hearing about unidentified things in the sky, right? They basically admitted to, yeah, there's stuff we don't know, right? And now with the current state of things, we've got some confusion and some weird things happening with other flying objects going around the sky, and lots of speculation and lots of people wondering what they are and what's going on. And of course, the government isn't telling us what they are, if they know what they are. And if they do know what they are, they're not going to tell us, right? So we're just left to basically wonder, worry, all of those things. But here's the thing. Things are going to happen that are outside of our control, and we don't know everything. We will never know everything. It's just not something that we're ever going to be able to do as humans. But what we can do as humans is we can try to be as prepared as we can. And there's some really basic things that we can do to prepare. If you guys remember spring of 2020, it was a little crazy. The world kind of stopped for a little while, and there was a lot of panic by some people. There were runs on toilet paper and Lysol wipes, and a lot of people in a lot of areas were really terrified. I was not one of those people at all. We happened to be filming at the time a pilot episode of a reality show, which went nowhere, by the way, mainly because COVID kind of crushed that, and then other things happened, and people that were there were no longer at that company anymore, and whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm kind of glad it didn't work out. But we were in the middle of filming that when the world shut down, and everybody was panicking. All of the staff that was there that was filming us, the mic guys and the camera crew and all of that, they were like, oh man, this is like getting bad, and what are we going to do? And people are like, getting into fistfights over toilet paper, and it's chaos at the grocery store, and just kind of crazy. And in the midst of that conversation, one of my deliveries showed up of toilet paper. And it was kind of funny because, again, this was very early on. We're talking like March 16th, if I remember correctly. It was like right when it was hitting. I had, of course, already had a what I would call a well prepared stockpile of things like toilet paper, paper towels, Lysol wipes, cleaning products, not even getting into like the food and things like that we had stored. They were like, oh my goodness, like you have this, like you are prepared. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, that's why you guys are here doing a show about us. Like, we're prepared, we're ready for stuff. I have things set up. I already have things, that come at a certain interval, and then on top of that I make sure that I have a supply on top of that so that we don't run out and freak out and have a panic. And I didn't have to go to the grocery store for quite some time. I didn't have to buy any of that stuff for quite some time. And we might be in a situation right now where there may be some people that are fixing to panic soon. And it's good to be prepared. It's good to have your own preparedness, your own things that you keep a supply of. It's very simple to keep some of the basics around. And I encourage you guys to do it and we've talked about this before, to the level that you're capable of with what you can afford. And in this economy, It may not be very much, but to the level that you can afford, and then of course to the ability of, what space you have to keep it. Things like flour, rice, salt, vodka, beans, those are all things that you really want to make sure you keep on hand. Obviously, rice and beans is a very basic thing that you could live off of for quite some time. And those are very easy to store. You can store them in dry food containers. You can can them yourself, stick them in your freezer, and leave them in there if you're not concerned about, we can get into other scenarios where, you don't have power and whatever, but just having some of those basic things on hand. And then of course, vodka is good for trading, is good for, a painkiller, is good for cleaning wounds, etc. And it's always good to have some of those things on hand. And of course, salt is always good. It'll add a little flavor. If you keep enough of it on hand, of course, there's more that you can do with it as far as curing meats and things like that. But it's important to kind of think about some of these things and how prepared are you for something weird to happen. Like, I'm not even going to say disaster or anything like that. I'm just saying something weird, because 2020 was pretty weird. It was pretty weird, and people got a little freaked out, and there was a lot of much ado about nothing, in my opinion. That being said, we didn't have to deal with certain aspects of it the way others did, because we had meats that we canned. We had meats that we had in the freezer that we had processed. We had other things that we had taken care of. Really? Did you just notice the horse? Good job. Kusi's like, the horse is over here. I must go talk to her. And having those things ready is super important, and then thinking about things like, if you want to get a little bit, more advanced, thinking about things like we've done lots of videos talking about different power banks that we use and things of that nature, solar generated ones, having a backup system for them. Those are all really good things to have in place, especially if you have medical devices that you're on, or if you have, medications that need to be refrigerated. I think between, things like obviously the devastation from the hurricanes that hit recently in places like North Carolina, if your whole everything is washed away, you could be as prepared as you want to be. And unless you have it in an underground bunker that you can excavate to, there's nothing you can do, right? There's only so much that you can do and prepare for, but it doesn't hurt anything to go ahead and be a little bit prepared and not let yourself freak out. Our pastor has this saying, and I don't know where he got it from, but he's said it a few times, and it's something that has always kind of stuck with me since the first time I heard it. And it's essentially that worry is like shovel and smoke. It's useless, and it doesn't ever get anything done. So you don't want to sit around freaking out, shovel and smoke, as it were, when you could maybe do a few things and have a few things in place that are going to make you feel a little bit more prepared. Even just a basic thing like, we obviously keep chickens. We raise chickens for meat, but we have laying hens as well. We also have ducks for the same reason. For us, obviously birds have cycles. And so during the winter months, when the days are shorter, and they're going through a molt a lot of times, just because of the general schedule of when they molt and when you have them in their first year of lay and all of that. For me, because of when I tend to do my chicks and everything, they're usually going through their first molt right about now, end of fall into winter. And when they are going through their molt, a lot of times they won't lay. So add that on top of the fact that now it's shorter days and all of that. You're not having any eggs from those girls because of nature, right? Because of science and biology, which I know we like to not, gloss over a lot in the world today, but it's still a thing. So water glassing my eggs helps tremendously. Now I have whole eggs that are in these giant gallon jugs that I'm able to store. I have dozens and dozens of them saved up to get me through the winter until my girls are laying again. Just, a little pickling lime. I've done a video on how to make that before. and water in there, and they're good to go, and they can last, some people say, up to 2 years. I have a feeling, they would really be more like season to season. But during the summer, when they're laying like crazy and you can't possibly eat all the eggs, that's when you want to store them. That's when you want to set them aside. And then I've also done where I've cracked them all, scrambled them with a pinch of salt, and you throw them in flat bags into the freezer, and they cook right up just like normal. If you're blessed enough to be in a situation where you have land like we do, where you can hunt on it, having the ability to do that, and the skill and the knowledge of how to process an animal, how to hunt an animal, how to raise an animal, some basic animal husbandry, and some basic biology of the different animals that you are keeping, so that you're able to procreate them, so that you're able to use them for meat, use them for milk, use them for eggs. These are all things that you want to be thinking about. And obviously, I would, of course, bet money if you're in a situation where you have a lot of land and you're living this kind of life where you're raising your own meat and you're hunting your own meat and you're doing those kinds of things, that this is not news to you. But for those of you that maybe live in the suburbs or on a smaller piece of land, or are just contemplating starting farming or homesteading or something like that, I will say this, it's not for everybody, of course, but it's amazing and it's rewarding and it's a lot of hard work. That being said, I think that for most people, they think that it's going to be something that maybe it's not. They don't realize that it means that sometimes you have to put animals down, and you have to be prepared for that mentally. Sometimes you have to call an animal because it's sick or injured beyond the point of saving, or that its injury or illness threatens the health of the rest of the flock or herd and needs to be put down. These are unfortunate realities when you're in that position. And the more self-sufficient you are when it comes to that kind of thing, the more prepared you have to be to face those kinds of situations and not be intimidated by them or not be overwhelmed by them. I see a lot of in the group chats and the Facebook posts of people in a lot of these homesteading groups and things like that. They're always like, oh, my animal's sick and I don't know what to do. I can't bring myself to put it down. And I'm like, well, then you should not be living this lifestyle if you can't. I don't know how many animals I've had to put down or call because of those kinds of issues over the years. It happens, and you have to be able to do it. Or at least somebody in your household needs to be able to do it. That's just my opinion. Depending on what the animal is, there's been times where I've had to have Mike do it because it was an animal that I was close to and I couldn't do it. And there's other times where I've done it myself because it's not an animal. It was just, it was just a whatever animal that, yes, it's sad, but it had to be done. But it wasn't like a pet. Some of your breeders become more like pets because you keep them around for so long. And when they have to be put down, it's a lot harder sometimes, for me anyway. And mainly because I'm the one that raises them. So, but I still am not, if Mike was not around and I was in a situation where, God forbid, one of my goats or my livestock guardian dogs was in a situation where they had to be put down because they were in agony, and he wasn't here, I would have to do it. That's just the reality of it. And you have to be prepared for that too. So there's lots of ways to be prepared, not just having a stockpile of food and a way to do water and thoughts about electricity and things like that. But there's preparing yourself for the mentality of this is a new normal, of being able to process your own meat, from taking it from a live animal on the hoof, on the chicken foot, whatever, to something on your plate, something that's going to feed your family. And I think there's a disconnect, and I've talked about this before too with you guys over the years, that there's a real disconnect between where our food comes from and the reality of the work that goes into putting that food on your plate. And so it's important, I think, for kids to learn this. It's important for us as adults to know it, to learn it, and to pass it on. There's crazy stuff in the world today. There's crazy stuff that's going after our kids and our families, and You know, keeping a good supply of those things in your home that I've mentioned throughout this video is important. And there's lots of other things too, you know, certain tools, and by tools that covers an array of things that would be used in self-defense or for hunting, things that would be used to build or to fix, you know, having the knowledge to use them. And practicing with those things, practicing those skills, practicing your canning. You know, you can have a freezer full of meat and the grid's going to go down. And now you just have meat that's rotting if you don't know how to can it, because you can't eat it all in one day. The reality of it is that you have to have that mentality of being prepared on the next level of being able to handle certain things. And it's not for everybody, but you know, who's to say that that's not part of nature working itself out too? You know, if you're not of the mindset to survive, then you won't in a bad situation. And that's a reality too. If you have those things supplied for your family and those skills that you've learned and worked on over time, you will do a lot better than somebody who's never thought about any of that even, or thinks it's just for people that wear tinfoil hats, you know? So, you know, keep your Bible with you. Keep your other tools and things with you. And, you know, you have to put in the effort. You know, I'm a big believer in God gives you everything you need, but you have to put in the effort to get it all. So you can't just sit back and think that he will fix it all, because that's not, that he gave us free will. And so you have to use your free will and your common sense, hopefully, that you have, to look at the things that are going on in the world, look at the direction things have gone, look at the changes you've seen in the last 10 years, and think, maybe I should learn some of these things. Maybe I should be a little bit more prepared. The government's not here to take care of you. They're certainly not here to tell you the truth. And I think that this whole situation with all the craziness of all the orbs and the things and the who knows what, right? I think this is a good reminder to prepare yourself spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, for being more self-sufficient and taking those steps. So maybe this gave you something to think about. Maybe it didn't. This isn't our normal type of video that we normally do, but that's okay too. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Appreciate you. As always, remember, stay blessed. Safety's off.